everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com podcast. My name is David Vignola. Thank you so much for listening to this week's show, and this is episode number 19, and this week's topic, mixing with headphones. Why should you mix with headphones? What's the reason for mixing with headphones? Can you really get a great mix mixing with headphones? Well, I'm going to answer that question, and I'm going to give you 5 benefits and 4 pro tips to mixing with headphones to get great results. So this week, it's all about headphones. How should we go about it? Does it make sense? We'll talk about it for a bit here. So thank you so much. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe button, and share this podcast with others. Now let's talk about headphones right here on the HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com podcast. Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode. We are at episode 19. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, 19 episodes. Many of you listening to this have been around since episode 1. And I know that because I see all the different analytics about how many people are listening to these podcasts. So I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'm hoping that these podcasts are helpful to you in any way. And if they are, please consider giving me the highest rated review, depending on the podcast platform that you're listening to this on. And also, please share this with others on your social media if you don't mind, if you find a topic that really you think will help others. It really does help me, and the more it helps me and the more people that are turned on to this podcast, the more episodes I'm going to create for you. So if you want me to continue to bring this information to you and to give you little pieces of wisdom every week, then please help me by sharing the podcast and giving me a good review. Also, make sure you stick around till the end of the episode. I'm going to give you a couple of free gifts. So make sure you stick around for that. So let's talk a little bit about headphones. So mixing with headphones, another one of these controversial topics. Last week we talked about DAWs and how everybody's real passionate about their DAW and everyone has a difference of an opinion. Everyone has a difference of an opinion on mixing with headphones. Can you really get a great mix using headphones? That's the question. Is that practical? Can it happen? Well, I'm here to tell you yes, that it can. In today's day and age, with the home recording studio environment, and especially people that have a mobile or a portable home studio, and the way computer powering is today, and that today you can mix a full record on a laptop, which you couldn't do 15 years ago. The computers didn't exist that were powerful enough to allow you to do that. A lot of people are working today on trains and planes and hotels, and they're portable, and they're on the road and in bedrooms and in basements and in their kitchen, at their kitchen table. They're working on and mixing and mastering and recording music, and they're using headphones, and they're getting some great results. So the answer is yes, you can absolutely get great results mixing with headphones. But you have to follow some guidelines. I'm going to give you some tips on how to make sure you can maximize that effort using headphones. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about why would you want to mix with headphones? What are the benefits? Why wouldn't you just mix on studio monitors in your home studio control room or mixing environment or recording environment space in your house? Well, you can not do that. You can definitely just work on studio monitors and not use headphones at all. But here's the problem that I find with a lot of home studio recording artists, and especially mixing engineers. This is where this kind of pertains to mixing with headphones. You can just mix on studio monitors. I mix all day long on studio monitors. I rarely mix on headphones solely, but I mix on studio monitors. Why can't you just do that? Well, you can just do that, but here's the problem. Most home studio environments are not ideal. Most beginners and intermediates that have a home studio do not have the proper room setup, the proper acoustic treatment, more importantly, and they don't have maybe even a good enough set of studio monitor speakers to be able to turn out great mixes that actually translates from their studio to the car or to another listening environment. That's a very, very common problem. And maybe a lot of you listening to this have experienced this, where you get your mix sounding really, really great in your control room on your studio monitors, and you take it out to the car and it sounds like crap. And you say, I don't understand. Well, that's all about translating. And the mix doesn't translate from one environment to the other. And we talked, forget what episode it was. You go back to some of my earlier episodes of this podcast, and we talked about acoustic treatment. That's the number one reason. So if you don't have the right mixing environment and you don't have, you're not in a position where you can make your mixing environment to where your mixes will translate to different listening environments, your mixing on headphones is a great solution. Okay. It can take a lot of time and in some cases, quite a bit of an expense to set up a mixing environment in your home studio that's conducive to turning out good, consistent mixes. Again, we talked about acoustic treatment. Okay, now acoustic treatment doesn't have to be expensive, but there is some cost involved. And if you want some really great acoustic treatment, it can get expensive depending on what you decide to do. But more importantly, outside of the acoustic treatment itself is knowing where to place it, how much to place, how to use it, how to tune the room, how to position your speakers in that room, how to position yourself in front of the speakers. A lot of this information we talk about on this podcast, and it's all over my YouTube channel, and the information is readily available. It's not rocket science, quote unquote. You can do it, but you may not have the available space in your home to set up the most ideal situation. Most people don't. And if you're on a more restricted budget, like a lot of us are, you may not have the money to go out and get the proper amount of acoustic treatment. You may not be able to go out and get a decent set of studio monitors. You may not be able to position things in a room in a certain way to where it's conducive to turning out great mixes. One of the main problems I hear with a lot of beginner mixes is that they're not hearing accurately what's coming out of the speakers, and therefore they're not making good EQ decisions, good compression decisions, and the mix doesn't translate. We can eliminate all of those problems that I just spoke about for the last 6 minutes by using headphones. Okay? So here's 5 benefits for you. Here's 5 reasons why mixing with headphones is a great idea. The first one I just talked about, it takes the room that you're mixing in completely out of the equation. You can throw away the whole conversation about acoustic treatment. You can throw the whole conversation away about studio monitors, studio monitor placement. All of that stuff all goes bye-bye when you're using headphones. That's the largest benefit of it to me. That in and of itself, if I didn't even have benefit 2, 3, 4, and 5, number 1 should be the reason to do it. If you don't have the right room, you don't have the right acoustic treatment, you don't have the ideal situation, headphones is the way to go. Okay. Benefit number 2 is headphones are more consistent, meaning once you learn the headphones that you're on and you understand how they sound, you can, no matter where you're mixing, those headphones are always going to be on your head. They're always going to sound consistent. You're not dealing with the outside world. The environment's only between that headphone and your ear. Okay, so they're more consistent. Headphones, you can also hear, for benefit number 3, you can also hear more subtleties clearly in a mix. So the subtle parts of a mix, you could hear a little bit more clearly, a little bit more easily when you're using headphones as opposed to just using studio monitors. Okay, again, that gets a lot back to the room and the quality of studio monitor that you're using. Headphones will typically are better for more critical listening in most cases. So that's another benefit. Number 4 is a huge one as well. I should have made this number 2. They're more affordable than good studio monitors. This I talk about a lot, and I talk about studio monitors a lot. And there's a studio monitor at everybody's price point. There are studio monitors that could be $99 a pair on the low end, and they could go up to $10,000 a pair, $20,000 a pair, and everything in between. Most beginners that start off working in a home studio environment, they buy inexpensive studio monitors for a variety of reasons. Number 1, the cost, and number 2, they just don't know any better. What's the difference between a studio monitor that's $250 a pair? We're talking about powered studio monitors that have amplifiers built in, which is what most monitors have today, where you don't need a separate amplifier. So we're talking about powered monitors, okay? What's the difference between a powered pair of studio monitors at, let's say, $500 for the pair, which is $250 a speaker, versus $3,000 a pair, which is $1,500 a speaker? Is there really that much of a difference? Well, yes, there is. I could tell you that with absolute certainty. The higher end speakers are going to have better quality materials, better quality speaker cones. They're going to be easier to hear, more nuanced critical listening situations, as I talked about a few seconds ago. They're going to be typically more flat sounding, which means they're going to be more accurate in a lot of cases. Okay. Studio monitors are one of those pieces of gear that I believe that you kind of get what you pay for. The more you go up the price point ladder, the better quality speaker you're going to get. And if you're doing lots of mixing, and if mixing is your thing, and that's what this episode is really geared, towards, every decision that you make in a mix, every decision is based on what you hear out of those speakers. So if you have a real inexpensive pair of monitors that are not efficient, that don't really represent accurately what's going on in the mix, are not going to give you the information that you need to accurately mix that music. And that's one of the reasons why the mix doesn't translate, along with acoustic treatment and all the stuff we talked about earlier. So headphones are much more affordable. So here's kind of the comparison. In my opinion, a good mid-price set of studio monitors where you can do some really great work on, if you have the proper room and the proper acoustic treatment, right? They all work hand in hand. You got to look to spend somewhere around, I would say $2,000 to $4,000 a pair. $2,000 on the low side, $1,000 a speaker. $4,000 on the little bit higher side, $2,000 a speaker. Now I know you can go higher than that, you can go lower than that, but to me that's a good ballpark. When you start getting into a couple of $1,000s for a pair of studio monitors, you're getting a good quality set of monitors that in the right room with the right acoustic treatment, you could turn out pro sounding mixes. That's not to say that if your monitors were only $1,500 for the pair that you can't. Again, I'm trying to make some general, assumptions here and give you some general guidelines to think about, but that's kind of the ballpark. A really great set of mixing headphones, really great set, $500 to $700, $400 to $600 in that ballpark will get you a wonderful set of headphones that you can do really good mixes. So you don't need to spend $4,000 on a good set of studio speakers. You could get $400 pair of headphones and get the same quality there. Does that make any sense? So they're more affordable than studio monitors. And I always say, if you don't have the budget to get really good studio monitors and you don't have the budget to include the acoustic treatment and you don't have the space, don't chintz out and get crappy acoustic treatment, or worse yet, no acoustic treatment. And don't chintz out and go buy a pair of speakers that's $200. Take that money and put it into a good set of studio headphones. You'll be much better off. And from a mixing perspective, it will serve you much better, in my opinion. Now, you may say, well, what headphones should I buy, Dave? Which ones should I buy? Well, again, you got to do your research. There's a lot of good brands on there. I can tell you a few brands that I've used that are really, really great. I've used Sennheiser HD650s, HD700s. Those will run about $300 to $400 a pair. Those are fantastic. I've also used Neumann HD512, I think they are. It's the only pair of mixing headphones that Neumann makes. Those are $500 a pair. Those are awesome. I've also am currently using the Stephen Slate Audio VSX system, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. That's brand new on the market as a recording of this podcast. That's $479 for the headphones and also the software that comes along with it. So those are three. Focal makes a really good set of headphones, I think for $300 or $350. I believe they're called the Spirits. And there's others. When you go to a place like sweetwater.com, and the links will be in the description box below, you can read the reviews. Just search on their website, Studio Mixing Headphones. You'll see a whole bunch of them with a bunch of user reviews, and you can make a decision from there. Or you could talk to the Sweetwater sales engineer, and they can point you in the right direction. But I would say you're in that ballpark there. You're in between $300 to $500, and you are, look at Sennheisers, look at Focals, look at Neumann. I think even Sony makes a couple. There's some name brands out there that you can choose from. There's a lot of choices and you'll be much better served. Okay, so that's point or benefit number 4, is that they're more affordable than good studio monitors. And the last benefit is they're portable. I mean, that's pretty no-brainer, right? If you're someone that's on the road, if you're traveling, if you're doing things on a laptop, those headphones go with you. They're easy. It's easier than dragging around a set of studio speakers, for sure. Those are for people that have they mix in the same place every time in their home studio and it doesn't ever really move. So those are the 5 benefits, okay? In summary, it takes the room out of the equation. Headphones are more consistent. No matter where you're mixing, they're always going to sound the same. You can hear the subtleties and you can do a little bit better, more accurate critical listening with headphones, and they're more affordable than good studio monitors, and they're portable. So those are the 5 benefits. So now I want to give you 4 tips to if you decide to mix with headphones, how should you go about it? What are some of the things you need to think about? If you say, you know what, I'm going to try mixing with headphones. I think it's a good idea. I'm going to go down that path. Do you have any tips? I do. I have 4 tips for you. First and foremost, use a dedicated set of headphones to learn on, meaning don't switch headphones from one. Don't have 5 pairs of mixing headphones. Have one pair. Get used to the way they sound, learn them, spend lots of time with them, and learn those headphones. Have a dedicated pair of headphones just for mixing. Okay, in your home studio, the headphones that you do tracking on are going to be a little different than the headphones that you do mixing on. So you want to look for a mixing set of headphones that are really engineered and built for mixing, and you really want to have a dedicated pair that you use all the time so you could get very familiar with them. No different than if you had a set of studio speakers. You would want to get used to them and learn them and know them inside and out and know how they sound. Okay, pro tip number 2 is to listen to a lot of commercial music on them. Listen to lots of commercial music so you know how a professionally mixed song, mix and mastered song sounds on your headphones. That's going to help you when you're doing your own mixing. The more music you listen to on there, the more familiar your ears are going to get at what a good mix is supposed to sound like on your particular set of headphones. Okay, pro tip number 3 is mix at low volumes. Now, the one thing about headphones that could be a downside if you're not careful is they're sitting right on your ears, right? It's not like speakers where maybe you have 3 to 5 feet away, 6 feet away from you, the speaker, and there's air between you and the speaker, and they're not sitting right on your ears. If you're not careful with headphones and you mix at louder volumes, and you should be mixing at low volumes anyway, whether you're using speakers or whether you're using headphones, and I've talked about this a lot, in other podcast episodes, but because these are right on your ears, listening too loud can fatigue your ears much, much more quickly. Okay, so you want to mix at low volumes so you don't damage your hearing and that your ears don't get fatigued as quickly. Because when your ears get fatigued, the natural thing that your ear is going to do is it's going to start to compress. And when it starts to compress to protect itself from fatigue and from damage, you lose perception of especially the high end in your mix. And we talked about that a couple of episodes ago. Okay, so mix at low volumes. That's pro tip number 3. And then my last tip, pro tip number 4, is consider headphone correction software, something like a SonarWorks or the new Slate Audio VSX if you want to get a whole system. Now, what does that mean? Well, all headphones sound a little different, even the ones that are designed for mixing. Okay, if you were to listen to a commercially released song that you know and that you like and that you're familiar with, if you put on a set of Focal headphones and then plugged in a set of Sennheiser headphones and then plugged in a set of Neumann headphones and then plugged in a set of Sony headphones and then plugged in a set of Audio-Technica headphones, you get my point. They're all going to sound a little different. Some are going to have a little bit more bass in them than others. Some are going to have a little bit more mid-range. Some are going to have a little bit more top end. Some are going to sound a little bit more open clarity. Some may sound a little bit more woofy. That's an official mixing term, by the way, woofy or buddy, right? They all sound a little different. None of the headphones have a perfectly flat frequency response, although there are some companies out there that claim that they do, but they all sound a little different. So there are companies like SonarWorks that develop what they call a profile, where they actually have a profile where they've actually taken different models of headphones, measured with a bunch of high-tech fancy equipment, the frequency curve of those headphones, and then they have an EQ coded, if you will, a plugin that's made specifically for your model of headphones to kind of give you a more flat response, or as flat as humanly possible, so they're more accurate. So, for example, if you have a set of Sony headphones that tend to be a little bit bassy in the low end, SonarWorks would have a profile for your specific model of headphones that kind of takes, kind of cuts out those lows. So the lows don't seem as accentuated. They're not as hyped. They're more flat. They're more neutral. Okay. So SonarWorks does a great job with stuff like that. They have profiles for literally dozens and dozens of the most popular headphones on the market. You can find one for yourself. And if you even want to take that one step further, because even, for example, those Sony headphones I just mentioned, if you took 5 pairs of the same exact model and put them on your ears one after the other, they're not identical. They're all a little bit different. There's little nuances in the componentry. So SonarWorks will make a generic profile that should kind of hit the middle of all of those Sony headphones in this example. But if you want to even get more accurate, you can actually purchase from them, or you can ship them your actual headphones and they will build a custom profile for your specific headphones that are sitting on your ears, right? So that makes things even a little bit more accurate. And that profile works and coincides with their plugin that sits on your master bus as the last plugin in your signal flow chain on your master bus, and it does any correction from an EQ point of view. So when you're listening to your mixing, you're making your mixing decisions, you have as neutral and as flat of a frequency response in your headphones as possible, okay? That will help greatly when you're working with headphones, regardless of the headphone manufacturer that you're using. Now, do you have to have something like that? Well, it just makes things a little bit easier. You don't have to have something like that. Again, if you're mixing on the Sony headphones we're talking about in this example, and you realize that, wow, when I take my mix out in the car, it always seems to have it's a little too thin sounding, because when I'm listening to those Sonys, the bass sounded really big and full, and then I bring it to my car and it's a little bit too thin because the Sonys have a hyped low end. Well, if you know that and you can compensate for that for your mix, you can offset that a little bit. You can do that. So you don't have to have something like SonarWorks, but it helps you get to the end game faster. The other product that you can check out, and it just came out a week before I'm recording this episode, is the new Slate Audio called the VSX, which is a custom set of headphones along with a room emulation plugin that works with any DAW, which is a really interesting thing. And I have a YouTube video on it. By the time you listen to this, you could search my YouTube channel at Home Recording Made Easy. You can see the review and how it works, the Slate Audio VSX system. And again, that's $479 US, and you get a really great set of headphones, and you get a software that's been customized to work with those headphones. And not only does it give you what they claim is a really neutral, flat response, but the software also gives you the ability to audition your mix in different emulated listening environments. Things like a recording studio, to a dance club, to a car, to an emulation of what your mix would sound like using like little earbuds. And that all happens inside of the Slate Audio VSX system. That's something else that you can consider to check out. It's a little bit more involved, but again, it's the right price. And again, it helps you turn out really consistent mixes on your headphones, regardless of the physical environment that you're in. So those are 4 pro tips and 5 benefits to mixing with headphones. It is a great idea. More and more people are doing it. And if you're someone who doesn't have the ideal mixing environment and you have mixes that don't translate, then headphones are the way to go. And if you pick a good set of headphones, and if you use the tips that I gave you today, and you do a little bit of research to find yourself a good set of headphones, you will turn out very, very consistent mixes once you learn those headphones. And it will help your mixing and help you get a better mix much, 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 much more quickly. So I hope you found that information helpful. Now, thank you so much for listening to the end of this episode. As I said at the beginning, I want to give you a couple of free gifts. The first thing I want to give you, if you are new here to Home Recording Made Easy, welcome to our family. I appreciate you being here. I want to invite you to check out all the previous episodes of this podcast, and I also want you to go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. The links will be in the show notes below. And I want to give you a free mixing training course. It's right on the homepage. Click on the orange button, create an account. It'll be deposited into your account free of charge. You get all the audio files along with it, so you can watch the video, watch me mix the song, and mix the song along with me. Along with that course, you're going to get a PDF with some tips and tricks to getting a professional sounding mix that you can apply right away with the mixing course that you're going to get for free. So make sure you check that out at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And then if you see any other training courses on my website that interest you and you'd like to make a purchase, I want to give you a 30% discount. The coupon code I'm going to give you is podcast30. Again, it'll be in the show notes below, but you can write it down, podcast30. Use that at checkout. It will take 30% off any one of the training courses on my website. So if you want to learn about compression or EQ or mixing or mastering or recording or parallel compression or mixing drums or recording drums, blah, 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 I have a training course for you, and you can take 30% off today. So once again, thank you so much for joining me for episode 19. Let me know how you feel about mixing with headphones. Leave show comments below. And until next week, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com as well as mixingmadeeasy.net. Every link that I'm talking about today will be in the description box, show notes below, and I will talk to you next week. Take care, everybody.